Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes so we can get everybody in the call. Good morning. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll get started here in about a minute and a half. We're letting everybody to get all dialed in. Hope you guys had a good New Year. Good morning, everybody. We'll get started here in a little less than, or a little over a minute. Good morning, everybody. We'll get started here in about a minute. Happy New Year. Good morning, everybody. We'll get started here in about 30 seconds. Everybody get dialed in. Good morning, everybody. We'll get started here in a couple seconds. Getting everybody dialed in. Okay, we'll get started. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2025. Hope you have the best year that you've had yet, both in your personal life and your business life. So today is a call. It's one of my favorite calls to do. I do it every couple of years, and it was a consumer-facing presentation, but I think it's awesome for us to understand it and internalize it as advisors too. And it's a super fun, I think, presentation. So the reason I want to do it at the beginning of the year, first of all, why not start out with something fun? But second of all, we have to look at what do we think is going to happen in 2025. So this is the 2024, and there's all sorts of predictions. But guys, how would you mortgage your house based on anybody's prediction of what's going to happen in 2025? Think about your money manager, where you put all your clients' monies. Obviously you trust that guy to a certain degree. Would you mortgage your house based on what he predicts is going to happen? No, because there's so many moving parts to the market. We just don't know what's going to happen. So what we want to do, and the reason we do use our money managers, is because we're basing our decisions on probability. So today's call is about probability and how it works and how we can put probability in our favor instead of just waiting for luck. So that's why I love this call. This is actually it used to be a consumer-facing presentation or seminar that the 5-2 used to use. So I think it's fun for us to go through. So well, let's hop right into it. So what are the odds of winning the Powerball? Well, it's 1 in 195 million. 1 in 195 million. What are the odds of two golfers in one party of 4 getting a hole in one at the exact same time? 1 in 17 million. 1 in 17 million. That's 11 times more likely than winning the Powerball. What's the likelihood of being hit by lightning? According to the Weather National Service data, the average is between 280 and 400 people are hit by lightning every year. That means it's 1 in a million. 1 in a million to get hit. That's 195 times more likely to get hit by lightning than winning the Powerball. Being dealt a royal flush in the opening hand, not just the royal flush, but in the opening hand in a poker game. That's 1 in 649,000. That's 300 times more likely of being dealt a royal flush on the opening hand than winning the Powerball. Yet, how many people would bet, even pay $1 to say I'm going to be getting a royal flush in my opening hand? I'm going to be $1 that I'm going to get hit with lightning. The people who are willing to pay $2 to get Powerball because they're hoping to win. So odds are an odd thing when it comes to human nature. So I'm going to talk today about how to get lucky. And there's several studies been done in the US, the UK, and Asia that have found You can increase your luck, and you've heard me talk about this before. So how do you get lucky? Number one, you create and notice new opportunities. You use your intuition, your gut intuition. You have a positive mental attitude. You have a mindset to turn bad luck into good luck, and you have a strategy. And today we're going to talk about having a strategy. But I'm going to go back for you and your business, the best way to get lucky. So this is actually consumer facing, but I just want to touch on the fact that in your business, create and notice new opportunities. Well, the best way to create and notice opportunities, the number one characteristic people who have changed their luck is getting more contact, knowing more people. The more people you know, the luckier you get. So the more people you know, you're creating more opportunities. But as far as just numbers and the market and making money, all of these things work. Create and notice new opportunities, use your intuition, have a positive attitude, have a mindset of turn bad luck into good, and have a strategy. So we're going to talk about these things today. So after 1 month of people being trained on how to use these things, these 5 things, 80% of them said they became luckier. So there are ways to become luckier. You can actually make luckier choices. Having a positive attitude helps, but having a strategy helps more. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You can put probability on your side. If you want to decrease your chances of getting ill, you can leverage the probability by eating healthy. That's going to lower your chance of getting ill. Drinking plenty of fluids, exercising, getting regular checkups, getting vaccinations. I mean, all those things are going to help you reduce your chances of getting ill. So how is chance determined? How is it determined? Well, here's a great example of that. What's the likelihood the 2 people in the room, if you're in a room with a bunch of people, what is the likelihood the 2 people in the room have the same birthday? You'd think it'd be 1 in 65, right? But if there's 50 people in the room, the probability of coincidental birthdays is actually greater than 90%. If there are 50 people in the room, there's a 90% chance, not a 1 in 365 chance, but a 9 in 10 chance. Not a 1 in 365, but a 9 in 10 chance of 2 people having the same birthday. That's crazy, isn't it? That's crazy. 30 people in the room, and you still have a probability of greater than 70%. So not 1 in 365, but still greater than 70% chance of 2 people having the same birthday. So and again, I won't go through the math because it takes about 10 minutes to go through the math, but the math proves that this is the case. So is it riskier? Here's a question for you. Is it riskier to if you're gambling, to lay it all on the table or to hedge your bets? Which one is riskier? To lay it all on the table or to hedge your bets? Which one is riskier? And this is a trick question. It depends on the situation. See, in roulette, you want to lay it all on the line. In poker, you want to hedge your bets. So why is that the case? So again, which is better? It depends. See, that's the thing. You have to understand the situation you're in order to make luck work for you. So because one strategy doesn't work all the time, roulette, it makes sense to lay it all on the line because your odds are static. They don't change. You have a 47.36 chance of winning if you only bet once. But is the wheel set up for the house to win or lose? The wheel is still set up for the house to win, but not, which means that if you do it over, the more chances you bet, the more times you take, the more likely the house will come out ahead. But your odds are highest if you only do it one time. So if you're in dire straits and you owe debtors and the mafia a huge amount of money, and you're trying to figure out how to get out of it, well, what you want to do is go to the casino, pull it all on red or pull it on black, and you have a 47% chance of winning. Very close to a 50-50 chance. Not 50-50, but very close to 50-50 chance of winning. But when it comes to poker, you don't want to do that. Because with poker, the odds are not static. The odds change. Some hands are better than others. Some players are better than others. Some players are worse than others. You bet more on good hands, less on bad hands. The odds change. Just because you have 3 aces doesn't mean the guy across you doesn't have a better hand. Just because you have a pair doesn't mean the guy across you doesn't have a worse hand. And there are tells. You can look at the players that you're playing with and find tells. So with poker, you want to hedge your bets. Roulette, you're all in. Poker, hedge your bets. Should you put all of your eggs in one basket? Well, with roulette, with roulette, it makes sense. With poker, it does not make sense to put all of your eggs in one basket. So probability matters whenever you have to make a choice. When you choose to choose a house to buy, when you choose a treatment or a surgeon, when you choose your investments, probability matters, and a strategy matters. See, what's the best way to avoid risk? Well, what happened to people who hedged their bets in 2008? So guys, what happened to people who were well diversified in 2008, thinking, I've hedged my bets, I've made sure that I don't have all my eggs in one basket? What happened to the people like myself who had good diversified portfolio and had $500,000 in money markets, etc.? Well, they all blew up. Diversification did not work in 2008. In fact, my money market was supposed to be guaranteed, or so they told me, at a $1 per share. It took me 6 months before they finally honored that, because even my money market lost 40%. It took them 6 months to finally honor that $1 a share, because obviously it's not guaranteed by the FDIC or SPIC for money market. Some of them now have guarantees, but they did not back then. So people who hedge the bets, does not always work, right? It went down. Stocks went down, bonds went down, real estate went down, commodities went down, heck, even my money market went down. So, but can you stack odds in your favor? Well, yeah, it is. Let's look at some ideas on how, if you have a strategy, you can hedge the probability. But if you don't make chance work, if you don't have a strategy, it's going to work, but it's going to work against you. Like the house. See, people aren't naturally lucky or unlucky. They're just people that make chance work for them, that have strategies, that are lucky. And these people let chance work against them. They're unlucky. So let's look at an example of that. Dating game. Let's look at the dating game. Here's the dating game rules. We're going to give the gal 100 suitors to look at. And you want to find the best one, but you can only date them once. There is no second chance. So you can't date all 100 and then figure out which one of the 100 was the best. No. Once you've had a date, and if you reject that person is rejected for life. You cannot go back again. So you have to decide when you date, after you date somebody, if you're going to marry them or not. So how can you use a strategy to make your chances go up of finding your best suitor? What ends up, there is a way to do that. There's a way to put the odds in your favor of finding the best person. So what's the chance of the first date being the first one out of 100? Well, it's 1 in 100 chance that they're the best. If you want a realistic chance at the very best, you can't pick a random. You have to have a strategy. If you want chance to work for you, and better your chance, compare them. You need to compare the two sides, each individual. But again, the trick here is, once you've dated that person, if you reject them, you cannot go back again. So your best chance is to use a comparison strategy, but it has to be a strategy, because obviously, like I said, once you've dated that person, you reject them, they can't come back again. So how do you make chance work for you? Well, you don't plunge in too early. There's a lot of fish in the sea. You only have a 1 in 100 chance of that first one being your best. And you may regret a hasty marriage. But you also don't want to wait too long. Like I said, if you go through all 100 or you go through 99, the chances are 99% chance that you already missed that person. So there is you want to date enough, but not too many to find the highest likelihood. You have to have a strategy. So here's the thing. Here's the strategy. Use the first group of 10 dates to rate the field, rate each date on a scale of 1 to 10. So which of the dates was a 1 and which was a 10? So 1 is the best, 10 is the worst. Marry the next date that rates higher than any of those first 10. If you date the first 10 and then you date the 11th person and they are better than the first 10, well, then you have a 1 in 4 chance, 25% chance, instead of 1 in 99, instead of 1 in 100, you have a 1 in 4 chance of choosing the best date. If you go in 36 dates, you'll have a 1 in 3 chance. If you go in 36 dates and then you marry the next one that's better than the 36, you have a 1 in 3 chance of marrying the best person. So that's a 1 in 3 versus a 1 in 100. How significantly, by having this strategy, how significantly have you increased the chance of marrying the best person? A little or huge? You've hugely, you went from a 1 in 100 to 1 in 3. So you went from a 1% chance to a 33% chance. Again, 33% isn't great, but 1% is terrible. Now, the thing is, like we said earlier, if you go on too many, it starts to decrease. Your chances of finding that best person decreases. And in fact, go back here. 36 is the best. 36 is the best, and then once you start dating more, your chances start to go down, 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 down. So you have a 33% chance of finding the best person, but then at 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 40, you start to go, the chances of finding the best person start to go down. So like we said, you want to date enough people, but not too many people. But obviously, finding the best person, just like finding the best investment, that's tough. But guys, in order to be successful, do you have to find the best investment? Or can you, or when finding the best investment, is it okay if you found, would you be happy if you continually found and invested in the top 5% of investments every single year? Would you be happy? Because trying to find the right one, that's tough. The best one, that's tough. But what if you could find a strategy that would be the best or in the top 5% every year? How wealthy would you be? Yeah, we'd all be extremely wealthy. Well, we're going to talk about this with the dating strategy. There is a way to maybe not find the best person, but to find one of the best out there. So perfection is hard, but we want to avoid the risk of making wrong decisions. Same rules, different objectives. Instead, don't shoot for the best suitor. Instead, increase your chance of a prime catch. Increase your chance of finding one of the best, not the best, but one of the best people. So instead of finding the best, you're going to settle for any of the top 5 out of 100. Top 5 out of 100. That means you're the top 5%. The top 5% out of 100. Like we're talking about the investments, top 5% of the investments, top 5% of the daters. So how do you do that? You go out on 20 dates. Go on 20 dates. And if you did that, you'd have a 70, and then choose somebody who, the next time you date, choose somebody who's better than those 20 dates. You have a 70% chance you'll marry somebody in the top 5. So now we've gone from a 1% chance to of finding the right person to a 70% chance of marrying somebody in the top 5%. Is that a good bet? You've increased from 1 in 100 to 70 in 100 for one of the top 5. Yes, you won't find the best one, but you find one in the top 5. That's a 70 times increase, not a 70% increase, a 70 times increase. Increase your chance of winning $1 million from 1% to 70%. How happy would you be? Or a come to retirement from 1% to 70%. How happy would you be? So you can rely on averages. You can rely on averages. Using averages. We use averages every day. We use average retirement age. We use average temperature. We use average life expectancy, average utility bill, average when we're buying a home. We use average rate of return when we're choosing an investment. But you can drown in an average of 2 inches of water, can't you? Because you might have a half an inch on one side of the pool and 10 feet deep on the other side of the pool. But it's the other side of the pool is only like 2 or 3 feet wide. You can still have an average of 2 inches of water and drown. If things get too out of whack, we count on them coming back to normal with averages. A reversion to average. 50 degrees in July, well, we know that that's not normal. So if there's a 50-degree day in July, we know there's also going to be a 100-degree day in July to bring us back up to that 75-degree normal. If we have 103-degree fever, we know we're going to get back to the mean, to the normal. If we have a price of orange juice goes crazy after Florida freeze, we know there's going to be times when there's going to be a bumper harvest, and the price is going to fall to the point where we come back to normal again. So brokers will often say, though, don't worry about losses. The market will come back. It always does. It returns to mean. But do random events occur in between there? Here's what we can learn from randomness. It can play tricks on the human mind. This is the dot exercise. So identify, when you're looking at these dots, identify which of these is computer generated versus the man generated. So let's look at a man-made. So which one of these, choose to write down. I'm going to give you 30, 40 seconds here. Write down which examples of these 8 examples were man-made. Some man sat down and made those. Or you can do it the opposite way. Which one of these are computer generated? Let's see how many of you can get these right. Take a look. Example 101, man or computer. Example 2, man or computer. Example 3, man or computer. Example 4, man or computer. 5, man or computer. 6, man or computer. 7, man or computer. 8, man or computer. Now, hopefully some of you remember this from times I've done this before. So these examples, which one of these are examples are man-made? This one's man-made. Why? See how perfectly spaced they are? Where in real life, they can be clustered in weird examples. Here, almost like a question mark. All these are randomly up here. These two, see how perfectly spaced these are? See, man thinks random is perfectly spaced. It's not. See, man thinks things are perfectly spaced. In real life, things get clustered in weird ways. How about random coin tosses? Let's look at these examples of flipping the coin, heads, tails, head, tails, head, tails, and find out which one of these are man-made and which one of these are actual flips. So which of these, when we look at these, heads, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, tails, heads, tails, tails, heads, heads, tails, tails, tail, heads, tail, tail. Here's heads, 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 tail, 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 heads, 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 tail, 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 heads, 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 tail, heads, heads. Heads, 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 tail, 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 heads, heads. Which one of these is truly random versus man-made? This one is what really happened, the random one. These were man-made. If we don't think you can have heads, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 heads in a row, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tails in a row. We think that's not random. There's no way that. Yes, that can happen. In fact, you could have a whole heads all the way across. That's when you randomly do it. See, we think we're being clever as men when we're doing this. It's like tails, heads, 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 tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, heads. We think that's completely having 4 in a row, 4 in a row, 4 in a row, 4 in a row, 4. We think that's crazy unlikely that it would be more than that. That's just human nature. It's hard for us to recognize the fact that random events are truly random. They can be things that we don't think can possibly happen. Randomly, could you have a total of 30 heads in a row? Yes, that can and does happen when you flip coins a gazillion times. Make sense? So when flipping a coin 200 times, at least one string of 5 or longer. Okay, flipping a coin 200 times, at least one string of 6 or longer, 96% chance. A chance of 5 or longer, 99.9% chance. You're likely to have, it's a 99%, almost 100% chance of having 5 or more likely. But here, look at 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So we know that this is the only one that's random. Crazy, isn't it? So the lesson is, we can't tell the difference between randomness and patterns. It's very difficult for humans to do that. We see patterns in randomness when they don't exist. We see patterns in randomness when they don't exist. And we don't see patterns in randomness when they do exist. Because human nature is to make things make sense. We want to make sense of random things. Random, by definition, means we cannot make sense of anything that's random. That is what random is. And guys, is the market random? On any particular day, is the market random? Over 100 years, the market is not random. But on any particular day, is the market random? Heck yeah. Is any particular year is the market random? Heck yeah. Was 2008 random? Was 2000 random? Was 1987 random? Was last year random when we had a 26% rate of return? Yes. Any particular year is even random. But we want to make sense of it, and we start to think, and guys, when we look at this, when we start to make sense of this, do we start to find reasonable explanations for something that there's no reasonable explanation for? Yes, we do. I mean, think of conspiracy theories. When people are talking about conspiracy theories, they suck people in because their explanation actually does make some sense. We start to, but you have to step back and look at random things being random. But here's the thing, it can get worse. What if we're talking about something more important than just flipping coins? What does the stock market average? Well, 1965, since 1965, the S&P 500 has provided an annual return of 10.2% through 2023. 10.2%. Does that mean the average is always 10.2%? Well, let's look at stock market returns over time. What is the average stock market return since its inception? The average stock market return is around 10% since inception. So just since 65 it is. Since its inception way back in the 1800s it is. Now, this takes into account periods of highs, such as 1950s, when returns were as much as 16% in the 50s. It also takes into account the negative returns of 3% rate of returns in the 2000s. But if you looked at, hey, from 1965 to current, it's 10%. From the historical 1860s or whatever, to current, it's 10%. It's obviously 10%. But in the 50s, it was 60% higher, and in the 2000s, it was 7% lower. So what is the average stock market return over the last 10 years? It's 11.2%. But here's the thing, just 10 years ago, it was 3%. What is the average stock market return over the last 50 years? It's 11.88%. But again, in the whole decade of 2000s, it was 3%. But you see, you look at averages and you think, what? 10, 11, 10%, 11, 10%, that's got to be what it is. It is. As long as you don't have to touch the money, as long as you're in long enough, but it's 10 years long enough to get it's 10 years, being in the market 10 years long enough to get a 10 or 11% rate of return. Well, let's look at that. See, what is the average rate of return of mutual funds? Again, quite a bit less, 9.67 versus 10.2. But what happens if we enter a period that we have a new normal? For example, here's some examples of new normals. Are mortgage rates the same now as they were in the 2000s? Are they anywhere near where they were in the 2000s? How long would it take us to recognize the new normal? Would we see it before it's too late? Because if we recognize it after the fact, the damage is already done. And if we recognize we're going to have a decade when the market only averages 3% at the end of the decade, it's too late. If we recognize that we're going to have a market where it averages 16% at the end of the decade, it's too late. We never can see what's going to happen until we look in the rearview mirror. Because let's look at, so 10 years long enough. Well, during 29 to 54, the average rate of return is 1.69%. Not average. That was cumulative. Cumulative return was 1.69%. 1906 to 1924, it was negative. Cumulative return was negative. This is not annual average. This is adding all those 18 years together. 18 years together, and it was negative 4.29%. Adding all those 25 years together is 1.6%. Adding these 17 years from 1966 to 82. The cumulative, not the average return, the cumulative rate of return was 0.83, which means what? The average rate of return is basically zero, right? 11 years here, from 2000 to 2010. The average return, cumulative return was 0.7, which means the average rate of return is what? Again, basically zero. So R is 10 years, being in 10 years long enough to get an average rate of return of 10 or 11%, which is what we look at if we look at since historical return, since the beginning, in the last 65 years, in the last 50 years, it's been 10 or 11%. But if you try to convince people who retired in 1929 or in 1966 or in the year 2000 that they get an average rate of return of 10 or 11%, they're going to tell you that you're crazy. And what's going to happen in the future? We don't know. We do not know. So we have to be careful about your reality. See, the wrong interest rate assumption can kill you. For example, from the time of the Civil War until the 1960s. So from the time of the Civil War, the 1960s, to 100 years. For 100 years, interest rates were never more than 6%. They were never more than 6%. Then from the early 70s until the 2000s, 3% was considered an embarrassingly low interest rate. See, in 2002, interest rates dropped then below 5% for the first time in over 25 years. So guys, 100 years, and all of a sudden, boom. 70 till 2000, 30 years, and then boom. And then 25 years, and then boom. So just because something's happened for 100 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, does that mean that's the new normal? No. Things change, and then that thing becomes the normal. So do I want to be like the broker who told himself and his clients in 2001 that the market average is 10%, or in this case, 7.1%? No. No, because at the end of that decade, they say, what do you mean it averages 10%? What do you mean it averages 10%? What do you mean it averages 11%? I got nothing for a whole decade. I got nothing for this whole decade. I don't want to be that broker. And here's the problem. The people who oversee brokers, they're not any help. This is the Securities and Exchange Commission in 2009 said, hey, you know what? When you do hypotheticals, you can't show a rate of return, or you can show a gross annual return of up to 10%. Guys, is that true? Yeah. Over 100 years? Yeah. Over 50 years, but any particular 10 years, is that true? So is this valid for the people who are policing brokers to allow brokers to say it's going to average 10%? That's who's policing? No. Especially for people who are retired. So in 11 years following 2000, it was more like 2.4%. Again, this depends on which market you're looking at, whether you're looking at the Dow Jones Industrials, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500. Some were at 0, some were at 2.4, some were but it was extremely low regardless of the market you looked at for the whole 2010. So let's look at 2.4%. Most advisors were optimistic. We aren't. As 5Q, we're realistic. Meaning we're experts on probability. Why are most advisors optimistic? Why are we the exception when we tell people, hey, the average rate of return is not 10%, it's not 11%. Sure, if your retirement is for 50 years and you don't pull any money out, then yes, we can use 10 or 11%. But how many of us retire for 50 years? How many of us have retired, don't pull any money out? Because if we're going to retire for less than 50 years, if we're going to pull money out, guess what? The market does not average then 10 or 11%. Look at during this period, it only averaged 2.4 with a 9, minus 9, minus 11, minus 22, plus 28, plus 10, plus 4, plus 15, plus 5, minus 37, plus 26, plus 15. So it does not average 10 or 11% all the time. So we're realistic, but most of our competitors, they're optimistic. Why are they optimistic? Well, most are in their 50s and 60s. That mean that they were born between when? 60s and 70s. Graduated college in the 1980s or 90s. And what happened in the 1980s or 90s when they first got into the industry? What happened? What were the markets like in the 1980s and 90s? They're going crazy. As a result, they think that if you're in the market long enough, you're going to do what? Fine. They're optimistic. See, when the market goes down, they're waiting for the market to do what? Come right back up. So in their formative years, they're always used to the market coming back up. But what happens if the averages change when you retire? This 25 years, this 17 years, this 11 years. And guys, look at this. Look at this. Are these, when we look at the green versus the gray, would you say there's a heck of a lot more gray? There's a heck of a lot more green? Or it's pretty well halvesies? It means half the time the market's not doing well, and half the time the market's doing really well. So if the market's doing really well, hallelujah. If the market's not doing well, during this period of time, it can crush a retirement. So you need to have a strategy in the best of times or worst times. Something that works in the best of times, something that works in the worst of times. So the best 20-year time period, 79 to 99, was 14. Because even 10, we find out, even during, not 10 years, but for over 20-year time periods, things can go bad. So 1979 to 99, well, it was average 14%. 1961 to 81, is that far away, or did they cross over quite a bit? The average was 3% a year. So how does 3% a year compare to 10 or 11% a year during that 20 years? So even 10 years or 20 years is not necessarily going to give you a 10 or 11% rate of return. You need to have a strategy. So the average during 1961-99 was what? So from 61 to 99, the average was 8.56. So it wasn't 14.4. It wasn't 2.99. The average during this entire period from 61 to 99 was 8.56. Which is a lot less than this 20-year period, but a lot more than this 20-year time period. So why is making chance work for us so important? Well, if you retire expecting a 14% rate of return, or you retire expecting a 3% rate of return, that's going to change your retirement how much? I mean, 14 is what? 4 times more. 4 times more than 2.99. And what happens if you have to withdraw money expecting a 14.4% rate of return, or a 10% return, or 11% return, or a 7% rate of return, but you only make 3%? What happens if you have to withdraw money? Well, that's where there are little white lies, outright lies, and then there are statistics, as Mark Twain once said. So let's look at an example. You deposit $100,000 in, you get a 6% average rate of return, and you withdraw 6% a year. Well, making 6, and you pull out 6, guess what? Your 100 goes to 106, you pull out 6,000, you're back to 100. Your 100 makes 6, you're back to 106, pull out 6,000, you're back to 100. So really, at the end of the year, average return is 6, making 6. At the end of the year, the 10-year time period, you still have your 100,000, right? But how often does the market perform 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, or 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10? It doesn't. So if we just go back and look at this example, a negative 35 at the beginning, a minus 25 at the beginning, a plus 25, and a plus 35, and then 10% in between, the average rate of return is still 6%, because these two negate, the blues here negate each other, right? Negative negates positive, negative negates positive, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10%, so that gives us an average 6% rate of return. But if we look at what happened here, is we're down, 100 goes to 65, we pull out 6,000 down to 59. Goes down 25, we're down to 44, pull out 6,000 we're down to 38. And we make 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, but do we ever get back to ground zero? We're pulling out, no, we don't. So by the end, here, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, pulling out 6,000, average rate of return is 6%. We end up with what we started with. Here, you end up 80% down from what you started with. And how long before you're out of money here? The average rates of return don't mean anything when you're pulling money out. When you're retired, you're pulling money out. It depends on how you get your 6% average. Depends on how you, and example B, look at here. What if instead of starting out with negatives, you start with positive 35, positive 25, and then at the end you have negative 35 and 35. So we just reversed this, right? Well, you still end up with 101,000. So here's the thing: if things go your way, instead of 100,000, you're at 101,000. If everything lined up and it went your way, you ended up with 101,000 or 1% more than you started with. But if things don't go your way, you end up with 80% less. So things don't go your way, 80% less. Things do go your way, 1% more. So should we be more worried about losing money or making money? Because we're not rewarded very well. Once we start pulling money out, we're not rewarded very well for making money, but we are extremely punished for losing money. It depends on how you get your average. But if you have a strategy, things can change. One that uses probabilities to hedge and eliminate risk. Do we know what the future holds? Of course we do not. But what if we use a plan that uses probability? It's called the sale plan. An example would be in the 1970s, you needed $12,000 per year. Bonds and CDs are paying 12% back in the 1970s. 12% you could get on a bond or a CD. If you had 100,000 and you needed 12,000, you just didn't put it in a bond or CD, it's going to pay $12,000 a year interest, right? Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. The problem is with a fixed income strategy is inflation. And that's a big problem because what happens to the cost of living during those 10, 20, or 30 years? Goes up. How about gas, healthcare? So what we do is we can't put all of our money in just CDs. Even if interest rates are high, we can't put money into just CDs or bonds because if interest rates are high, that means inflation is high. And eventually, we're going to be outpriced when it comes to all these things, food, gas, healthcare, etc. So the solution is to have some in safe, but put some in the market. So people began to realize they need to have stocks in the market in their mix as well. So you can take income from as long as the markets cooperate, dividends, and gains, and interest. So when you have investments, you have dividends, interest, and gains. Sorry about the mix-up on the slides here, guys. We changed the formatting of the slides, but that can be fixed. So as long as the markets cooperate, doing it this way, taking money from gains, dividends, and interest, we do okay. But you have to worry about running out of money. So is there an easy solution? Don't take withdrawals when the account is down. Well, the market is failing us. We cannot take withdrawals when the account's down. But how many people in retirement want to be in a situation where they can't take money out for 1 year, 2 years, or 10 years? I mean, if you're 62, 10 years from now, you're 72. If you're 70, 10 years from now, you're 80. You do not want to wait to pull money out until the market comes back. So we need something that we can pull money out even when the market is down. See, that's what's the flaw in the bond strategy? Inflation. What's the flaw in the stock portfolio strategy? Markets can go down. And that's where the SAIL comes in place. SAIL stands for Smart Asset Income Ladder. And with the SAIL, what we do is we have 3 or 4 buckets. In this example, we're going to use 3 buckets. Bucket 1, bucket 2, bucket 3. So bucket 1, we're going to have conservative money, things like money markets. Number 2, we're going to have more risk for growth, but not a lot. And number 3, we're going to take more risk for longer holding time periods where we can grow for inflation. So we're going to use this conservative money that we put in this bucket here for the first 1 to 5 years of retirement. This is where we're going to pull money from for the first 5 years. This will be empty 5 years from now. So then from year 6 to 10, we're going to pull this money from this moderately aggressive or moderately growth strategy. And after we're at 10, after year 10, that's when we can go here because we had our more growth money here. And this money has grown to the point where it matches where we were to begin with. We pull money from here. So again, first 5 years, this goes, we spend all that money. Then we're going to pull from the second bucket. But see, in that 10 years, then this third bucket is now as much as we started with at the very beginning of the 10 years, and you can start using the third bucket for money. And then we can do the same strategy all over. So in our example, do we have reliable and predictable income? Yes. The income is insulated from market ups and downs. The growth account can go down at times, but we're pulling from it? No. You can remember again, go back further here. If the market goes down, do we really care in the 6 to 10 and 10 plus portfolios, the bucket 2 and bucket 3? No, because we're only pulling money from bucket 1. And then during the 6 to 10 years, do we care if bucket 3 is going down or up or down? No, because we're spending from bucket 2 and allowing this to grow. So this has grown now for 10 years, and it's replaced all of the money that we started with. And you can do the same thing all over again. So the SAIL bucket number 3 is balance of, you'll end up with, at the end of 10 years, more money than you started with, which then accounts for inflation, right? Accounts for inflation, because you can't just start, because things cost more 10 years from now. Things are now more expensive than when we first started 10 years from now. So we need this bucket number 3 that's grown for 10 years to actually grow to more so we can spend more because things cost more. Make sense? So how have they refined this strategy? Well, adding more growth assets. Adding another bucket prevents your money from all being at risk at the end. Refining the math, pull from 1 or more buckets at a time. You can do it that way. So we actually have software that will help you refine that strategy. It's called the SAIL software. And it will actually walk you through having not just 3 buckets, but actually 4 buckets. And this example, I don't know if you can see this here, but we started out with 300,000. But by the time we use asset number 4, it's grown to 354,000. So we've accounted for inflation. So what did the economists say we can pull out per year? 4%. So more income by having a strategy, though. See, the 4 benefits of the SAIL strategy is we protect from inflation, we reduce the risk of running out of money, we'll increase your income, and we'll minimize your risk and worry about the future. See, with the SAIL, we can actually pull out more than the 4%, actually almost 25% more than the 4% that the economists say we can pull out. And at the same time, even though we're pulling out more money, we'll reduce the risk of you running out of money. That's the benefits of the SAIL strategy. We protect it from inflation. It reduces the risk of running out of money. It increases your income. Instead of 4%, you pull out more than 4%. And it minimizes, because we're protecting it from inflation and reducing the risk of running out of money, it minimizes your worry about the future. See, we're making chance work for you, probability work for you. Now, if you don't have a strategy, well, then you're gambling all in. That looks like the next 10 to 15 years will look like this. Oh, you know what? I don't need a strategy like the SAIL. I think the market's going to do fine, so I'm going to just go all in the stocks. You can do that. Or I think the market's going to be terrible, so I'm going to put all in the bonds. Okay, but then what happens with inflation? Even if you're not in the stock market, you're still gambling all in because inflation can kill you. Utilizing the SAIL strategy gives you security and confidence. Whether the markets go up, whether the markets go down, you're okay. See, whether the markets go up, down, and then back up, whether inflation goes up, you're still okay. See, understanding the probabilities can put the odds overwhelmingly in your favor. You leverage the probabilities with the sale plan. Reliable and predictable income. You don't rely on strategy of crossing your fingers, saying, I hope the market does well, or I hope interest rates stay high, I hope inflation stays low. The sale protects you if the market goes up. It protects you if the market goes down. It protects you if the inflation goes up. These are the things we're worried about in retirement, and the sale strategy protects you from all those. So remember when we talked about picking a spouse, how did we increase the odds of finding the right spouse by 70 times? Not 70%, but 70 times. Well, comparing with the good, the simple strategy is better. Comparing is good, simple strategy is better, but using a side-by-side comparison is the best. And that's what we're doing with sales. So we now know probability can increase our chance of winning a lot. When it comes to family, health, and money, we want to win a lot. And the best way to increase our chances is to compare with a probability strategy, which is what the SMART asset income ladder is. So when you so guys, here's the thing, this is for you. When you master your crib notes, hopefully that's what you've been doing all in December, mastering your crib notes, mastering your scripts, mastering the motive on each one of the 21 points checklist. When you've been doing your most important 15-minute drill and got, that's when you're going to get every client that you want. So I hope you enjoyed this probability presentation, and you can see how it can really help people see that they need to have a strategy. That simply having money in stocks and in bonds where they're relying on gains, interest, and dividends is a problem, or not necessarily is a problem, but can be a problem. Maybe great for the next 10 years, maybe terrible for the next 10 years. But do people in retirement want to bet on it's only going to be great? No, they're afraid of what if it's terrible? What if it doesn't work the way it's supposed to? And the SMART asset income ladder, the sale plan, does that for you. And Jerry's awesome. Jerry is awesome at helping you design portfolios using the sale plan. So if you're not using this tool, because all the guys in the top 10%, I guarantee you, all the guys in the top 10%, yes, they know the scripts, but all the guys in the top 10 production are also using the sale plan. Why? Because at the end, do any of our competitors have the sale plan software? No, only you have that. Are you coming to them with a product or with a strategy? See, people don't want to be sold products. They want to utilize proven strategies. And with the sale plan, you're giving them a proven strategy. Yes, there are products inside of it, but you don't want to go in with just a product sale. Having a strategy makes sense. And really, with the sale presentation we have too, we don't sell them a product there either. The FIA presentation is promoting a strategy. At the end, we tell them they can do it themselves or they can do it with the product. So guys, this is just an example of how you can have people understand that what all their advisors are telling them is BS. Average rates of return are lies. Stay in and you're okay. That's a lie when you're retired, because if you're pulling money out, you can get crushed. Probability can be put in, is not just luck, it can be made in your favor if you have a strategy. So these are things that can help you promote the fact that you're so much different than all the other advisors out there. Make sense? Awesome. You guys have a fantastic rest of the week and a great start to 2025, and we will talk to you all soon. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.